Hello, everybody. Alright, today we're going to be talking about birth certificates and your slavehood. Now, you might be asking how they're connected, but basically, birth certificates originally around the 1790s to 1830s were only issued to slaves. I cannot confirm whether or not that was true for all countries or just the Americas as I've been researching. But basically, up till about, I'd say 1795, and some would dictate the year here and there, but basically, in the Americas, you were not given a birth certificate of ownership, basically, because only thing that was owned were slaves. After about 1795 or so, they started issuing these. And I'm going to go into a bunch of details involving this, including how you're supposedly filthy rich and also a slave, and how basically you can write off most of your debt, if not all of it, and that's basically what's going on. And most people don't know this, so here we go. First and foremost, people, these are only issued by states of your country, provinces thereof, I believe, and basically they're only issued when there is a reason of live birth at a hospital, clinic, you get bedded. This one here is from Louisiana. I'm not going to go into the little details because they're not really necessary. But this is actually a very big document you need to know about. There are several major things involving this that I want to start talking to you about early on. And it all basically has to do with you basically being registered as a slave. Now, there's two parts of this really you should know. And there's a lot of different details, so I'm going to try to get through as quickly as I can. Up to the point of about 1933, everybody was on the gold and silver commodity in the way that they actually held up the national economy, the national debt, and everything else. 1933, everybody defaulted on their economies, and we switched from gold and silver to people. Now, here's the situation that actually gets really good and very bad at the same time. The reason I'm going into your birth certificate, ladies and gentlemen, is because it is actually issued as a banknote. And as you can see down here, comes up in the Americas as American Banknote Company. And I'm trying to dumb this down to you. I'm trying not to go into a whole list of details. But basically, the way we handled the gold and silver exchange over is that we basically invested in people. Now, there's a little discrepancy as to what actually happened, but when a person is born and you do get a certificate of birth and a birth certificate thereof, alongside it basically is a banknote or a bond. So you are basically bonded as a corporation. Your name, as it appears in all caps, is actually your corporation name. That is how you are basically owned by the government of the state or the federal and any internationals thereof, how your number thereof, you are issued a number, and when you look at this number, it will actually be your bond number. I believe it has to do with your Social Security number, plus 3 letters with three numbers at the end, which represent the Federal Reserve Bank in your area. There's 12 districts in the U.S. So you'd have your Social Security number, and following it, about 3 other numbers. Now, there's a little discrepancy, and I will go into the videos. I will go into a whole bunch of things so you don't have to hear me randomly talk about details. Now, I'll let you listen to the professionals talk about this, but this is actually serious. Because it's a banknote, these are traded on the stock exchange in every country, I imagine. But they're traded as bonds. They're not traded as your birth certificate. And because basically the world's getting ready to collapse, folks, these bonds in original value are supposedly worth incredible amounts of value. In the 1980s, they were worth about $630,000 each. Nowadays, there are some economists that say they are worth billions of dollars, and people who are starting to learn how you can actually get the money out of them. You may not be able to get the full amount, but there are ways you can pay off bills and other things with your bond. And that is what I'm going to get into. It is a nefarious situation, but people are doing it. They are supposedly doing it. I have videos of people who supposedly are paying off $5,000, $10,000 using their number when they go to, they get a receipt from a bill, they call, they set up an appointment with the IRS or CID or somebody else. They get special receipt, and at the bottom it has coupons and various things you mail in for money orders. And there's a certain way you can set this up to where basically almost all, if not all, your major bills can get paid off. Because what actually happens, folks, is this banknote here, your birth certificate, is how the economy actually is structured. And basically, when a debt occurs, what happens is they take a tax on your bond, and they actually withdraw from your account and actually tax you for it, and you have to pay it off. And it's never ever, from best of my knowledge, actually returned to your bond. It's just kind of floating out there, and they can trade and sell it 100,000 times. This is how they did the mortgage scandals and everything else because of all this stuff going on. And I'm not the best at this because this is where my economics is not the best, but I will show you a couple videos and everything on people that are doing this, that are benefiting from this, and hopefully this is actually pretty good for you. This first one I'm going to show you is from Federal Jack Tube 6. This basically says proof that your birth certificates are traded on NISE or NICE stock exchange. Now, if it's traded there, I guarantee you it's traded in every other country around the world, bar none. And this is basically a situation. Now, I learned something here today, folks. I learned that I can actually show the entire video, which I'm not going to because some of these are like 30 minutes long and I'm not going to spend that much time if it's for educational purposes, and this is. So what I'm going to do is basically start this one all the way at the beginning, run it probably about first 5, maybe first 10 minutes. Oh, this is only 4 minutes, so first 2 or so. I'm trying not to copyright this guy or, create any type of copyright fraud on this guy. But basically this is information, this is background information that you need to know, and we'll get into the bonds and the money thereof in a minute. So
It really look like it's part of a company, really.
Okay.
yes, it is part of a
But
company.
it is something that's listed on the stock exchange as K.
Yeah, it does pull up under that.
And does it have a value associated with it?
Yes, but I don't think this is correct. I don't even think that it actually, I mean, it's saying that it's $1 million, which is not right.
Why would that be incorrect in your estimation?
Well, because it's showing underneath that 0%, and it's not showing anything that it closed on.
I see.
So if it existed, it would have closed on an amount from yesterday.
But it's saying that it is on the stock exchange, and that's claiming that it's $1 million in value?
Yes. But I honestly don't think it's correct. I've never seen something like this before. So.
Okay.
Hang on.
There's a couple other letters too. I don't know if this is right or not. At the very end of part of the description, it says PVT.
Private.
Yeah.
Okay. Where is that? That's at the end of the 5?
Alright, like all these folks, I will give you the source and you can look at its entirety. What I want to get into is the information on this, because this is actually very important here. This guy actually found out how to get his number off his birth certificate and take it to a stockbroker, and basically he gave him the digits, and he basically was able to find proof that his birth certificate, the bond basically, is traded on the stock exchange, and so there is real world value to your birth certificate. Now, I don't really believe that, every single person's value is $100 million or the billions of dollars that everybody claims it is today. I'm not sure exactly what everyone's is. In fact, I'm pretty certain most of ours are probably still only a couple 100,000, even though they're supposed to be like 1 million at birth. And this was set up basically under the founding fathers, that basically every human is worth a certain amount and everything else, but it wasn't really actualized till about the 1930s, when a birth certificate was given and a bond was attached to it, which is exactly what the birth certificate is. It's a bond or a bondage of your, So basically, this is the idea. Garco finds out that the military industrial complex company owns his birth certificate, which is supposedly $1 million, by calling a stockbroker and giving the digits that are in the bottom right of the birth certificate. Garco finds out that basically his birth certificate is owned by the military industrial complex. Okay, so this unfortunately is doubled. I have a lot more. Hang on.
To secure my bonds here very soon, secure a lot of things, and send that birth certificate in with an accepted value in the back of it. That's what you're supposed to do. When you get your birth certificate, if you want to claim that money that's in your treasury account.
Hang on, I'll explain some of this, folks.
Let me rewind here. When they registered you, or in the babies, into corporate America, they also created a bond, and which is worth $1 million. So now it's worth billions of dollars. So
supposedly,
our right, we have the right to claim it back. I'm not too sure about accessing the treasury. I'm not really sure with that information. However, you can use that account against all the debts that you've had, all the debts to pay off everything that you've ever struggled for, the debts, the creditors that are going after you. You can use that. And basically what it is, it's, by writing on the utility bill or any other little bills that any company sends you, you write accepted for value, exempt from levy. I got to remember the other one. But that's basically what you have to say.
There's a lot of speculation as to whether or not you have to fill out a long list of filings. Like, I think there's 3 or 4 major things before you can even claim ownership of the bond. And I'm going to get you a video real quick here, and this guy is going to break it down, and he's going to talk about how basically the way it's set up right now, these bonds are good, but they're really only good as credit, and the corporation of the United States or whatever country you're in is actually the shareholder at the moment, or whatever words you want to use. And right now it's an abandoned property, and you have to go claim it. There's a trade name filing, UCC-1 for the United States, several other things. And you basically have to file a few forms, and I don't think it's even that expensive to do this. I'll go into the filing and where you file and everything in a minute. Or rather, he'll go into it. But basically, you file it with, I believe, the state you're in. And you will get basically the right to basically use this bond and write off some of your debt. There is a phone call I have, supposedly, of a male, about 20s, 30s, something like that. And he is using his number that he found on his birth certificate to basically pay off all his debts. Now, I don't know one way or another whether or not this phone call is absolutely legit. It sounds legit. I believe it to be legit. But there is a lot to this, and I'm trying to get you the best information, and I've spent the past 2-3 days going over this. So if I were to talk to you directly, I would be talking to you about filing your UCC-1, your trade names, and everything else before even attempting to get any of this. And you have to file various forms and get receipts, and you have to contact various people with it, and your A4Vs, I believe they're called, and several other things. So there's a long list of things to do, but some people are claiming you can up and do this. Other people are claiming you have to file some paperwork. Basically, this bond is set up, as I've said before, I believe I've said before, upon live birth, your parents basically sign off that they agree to give you to the government, and your big bold name on your birth certificate is your corporate name. That is who you are legally in the eyes of the corporation as. That is why when your bond is issued not to the human being, but to the corporation of the, let's say, John of the Robinson family. And, his number will be, like I said, the right-hand corner of his birth certificate, usually in red. And I'll get into this, and you can view some of the other videos, but the main thing is, folks, is the reason we have all this debt is because nobody can access their accounts. Nobody knows about their accounts. And you can go in there and basically do something called discharge your debts. And how they created the debt was they took a tax or a levy on the bond, and they basically spun it 100,000 times and, created all your debt for you. Every time you get a bill for something, you basically have a tax or a levy on your bond that creates the debt. Now, technically, what should happen legally is that the money is already there, so there's no point in even issuing the levy against your bond. But what actually happens is not only do they issue the levy and you get a debt, but they actually tell you must pay this debt even though your bond is worth, say, $1 million. So in order to do this, you have to get control of this back, and I'm going to get into that video hopefully real soon to show you what's what. Access your exemption account, and I'll go into the filing and everything, and he'll talk about it, and then I'll try to sum up as many details, and then I'll do the one on the phone call to the IRS, because I think this is actually very important.
I love that. All right, making a video. Doing the video thing. When the United States declared bankruptcy, it pledged all Americans as collateral against the national debt, and it confiscated all the gold. And if you recall, in 1933, the president did that through executive order, House Joint Resolution 192. Everyone had to turn in all their gold.
And I'll tell you about everything in a minute.
Their gold backed U.S.
in terms
dollars,
of how this is legal.
In exchange for Federal Reserve notes. Anyway, so confiscating all the gold eliminated the means by which anybody could pay for anything. It also assumed legal responsibility for providing a new way for you to pay, and it did that by providing what is known as the exemption. An exemption from having to pay for anything. In practical terms, though, this meant giving each American something to pay with, and that something is your credit. Your value to society was then and still is calculated using actuarial tables, and at birth, bonds equal to this average value are created.
Supposedly about 630,000.
It's currently between $1 and $2 million.
That's overestimated, I'm sure.
And now a bond is a promise to pay, right? So the bonds are collateralized by your birth certificate, which becomes a negotiable instrument. These bonds are hypothecated, traded until their value is unlimited for all intents and purposes. And all that credit created is technically and rightfully yours. In
that
point
is
of
absolutely
fact,
true.
You should be able to go into any store in America and buy anything and everything in sight, telling the clerk to charge it to your exemption account, which is identified by a 9-digit number you will recognize as your Social Security number without the dashes. It is your EIN, which stands for Exemption Identification Number. However, these people that set up these accounts have done everything in their power to block our access to our own credit by creating the corporate fiction, which is a trust identified by your name in all capital letters.
Which is a real thing. He's not making a conspiracy theory. Right. Hang on.
It is a debtor, and like all corporate entities under the bankruptcy, because it is a subset of the bankrupt debtor government, it is not you, but you unknowingly serve as a trustee for this fiction, manage it for...
Alright, he talked about the strawman effect. Let me explain that for a few seconds, because I think that's actually very important. Alright. I'm not the best at this, so I'm going to do my best to go out on a limb here. When you are born, you are given a corporation. You, the human being, are given a corporation by your, and as such, a bond. And basically, as such, you are given what's called a strawman, or rather, everything levied to you, for you, or against you is attacked to your straw man. It is not legally at all ever attacked by you, the human person. There's a video I have here, and I can't find it at the moment, that very well sums this up. And this is why in court, at least when we were still under a democracy or a republic, they needed your consent to put you in jail, because they were not putting you, the human person, in jail. They were putting your straw man in jail, basically saying that your corporation has violated corporate laws thereof, and thus by violation your straw man is going to jail. And there's a large piece on this, and I have this sourced out in my references so you can watch all the videos and find this information for yourself. But basically, this straw man, or as I like to call it, straw man effect on your corporate fiction, which is an actual term, is the actual corporation set up to handle the bond. And that is why it is necessary that you get your papers together and get this to where you and your family can actually pull from these bonds, folks. There are people learning how to do this. And my father kind of hinted at this when he was trying to get his house back, but it all has to do with the varying degrees of who's buying what and whether or not they can put forward the note, details on the receipt, and everything else. I'm trying not to get overly into this, so let me go back to this so that you understand what this guy's at least trying to talk to you about, because I went into this with almost no complete knowledge.
Its lifetime and are legally liable for any and all debts it incurs, unless by administrative means you lay claim to any and all value it might contain by creating a security agreement between you and it. Sounds easy enough, doesn't it? Once you have done this, no other fiction can have any dealings with your fiction without your express permission as a creditor and creator of its value. It cannot even be sued without your permission. In fact, no court, government agency, law enforcement agency, attorney, or other corporate entity can transact business of any kind with the straw man without your permission. It is the one thing that every judge has drilled into his head, that the court must have your consent before it can prosecute your straw man, rule, or put you in jail. You, the unwitting surety for the straw man, which is a fiction, cannot be put in jail. Because it's not you that they're prosecuting, it's the straw man. And because it is your property, they need your consent for their fiction court or attorney to transact business under Admiralty Commercial UCC law with your straw man. The person in the black robe sitting in front of the court is a man on the land operating a corporate fiction called a court, which can only do business with other fictions. Your straw man. If you have ever looked at a summons, a complaint, which typically starts a legal proceeding suit, you will see it identifies the parties involved as plaintiff and defendant are always spelled in all capital letters because they are fictions. Clever still, the United States contracted with the Federal Reserve to use its private copyrighted script, the Federal Reserve note, for all debts, both public and private. And that private script can only be brought into the public, the corporate domain, that is the system we currently live in, through a chartered banking institution or pass-through account.
Stop it.
And that pass-through account is your limit.
There we go. Now I can't get out of here.
Limited liability Social Security account. Anyone bringing money into the public in any other way
they
can
must
be
want me
charged
to
with
really
money
show this.
laundering.
There we go. So basically here, folks, There's a long list of things attached to your birth certificate, and it all has to do with your corporate name and your strawman thereof. They're never, ever, ever legally dealing with you, the person. They are legally dealing with the strawman. This is why you have to learn to take control of that strawman. And if you were to had watched the video before that, which I have referenced, so you'll see it at the bottom when I put this up under my sources, you will find out that basically everything you do day in and day out that has nothing to do with regular cash has to do with your strawman. And how much nefarious things we could easily wipe out if everybody was able to get their bonds. This is why they want to bring the total society down, so they can put everybody into a prison so that they basically own everybody's strawman. So they can basically wipe out everybody's debt. And that's actually how they're going to bring on the new currency, is that basically they're going to go back to that bond being worth way more than anything you have. Problem is, they don't want to give you that money because that money isn't really money. I mean, it is money, but all it is numbers that have been curating in the economy since your birth. This is why these things are sold on the stock exchange, the bonds, the notes, etc., etc., etc. This is why it's so profitable for these people to buy your houses and copy your deeds and everything else that these guys are being caught doing, because not only are they doing the bonds, they're doing the houses, they're doing the mortgages, they're buying and selling everything, making the money value on it incredible. Problem is, it all goes back to your bond, and what they're actually doing is they're actually taking your bond and they're growing the amount of money that's in it, but when you actually have a debt, they actually tax you on your bond and say, okay, you now owe me $12,000 for this motorcycle, and they expect you to pay it out of an extrajudicial account or currency or some other payment, because they don't want you to believe that these banks and these bonds actually exist, and they actually do. It's a double, I think it's a double EU bond is what it is. I think, I'm not positive. I have probably what's on the lighter side of an MBA in terms of what I know, except for I don't know this side of the law, this side of everything. And what I want to show you is the different things that when you let that guy talk and everything, he'll basically show you what you need in terms of what to file and everything else. And you go to here, Stop the Pirates blog. I don't like this site. It's weird, but it does kind of give you insight into what he was going to talk to you about. You file the UCC1 financing statement and addendum. I believe you file this with the state you're in. You file an amended promissory note with the county records office. There is one or two more things in his video that he talks about before this. One of them is the tribute name or something like that you have to file. And I'm trying to bring this to you, but I'm also trying not to bring you everything in its entirety, just so that I have plausible deniability and stuff of that sort. So when I bring this to you, I'm not going to go A, B, C, D. I'm going to let you just go ahead and look it through this and let you see what some of this may or may not be. And I want to go to this phone call because this phone call is actually kind of important. This guy here, he's about 20, 25, maybe 30 at the most. And this guy is actually very important if this is actually real. I don't like the fact that his picture's here, but his name is supposedly Christopher Fleming. And basically, he's showing you how to pay your bills with just your signature and how to do an A4V from the IRS. And like all these others, I'm only going to show you a couple minutes because I can't show you everything. But this is actually very good. I started off about 12 minutes, and I'm going to do 12 minutes and 6 seconds because he's kind of back and forth with this lady, and he's not the most polite guy. And this could have gone a lot smoother, a lot faster if he would stop joking around with her. But at about 12:06, they start getting to a point where he actually starts getting into the information. And I stopped it at about 24:01, and that's basically at a point where they were talking about the receipts and everything else. And at that point, I understood a lot more about what these guys are supposed to give you when you talk to them about stuff, and how they're supposed to issue you, or when you get a receipt for something and you call the CID, when you call the IRS and various other organizations, and you say, hey, you know, after you've done all your filings and everything, you say, hey, look, I have this trustee account, you know, that is my, you know, I'm not sure you want to say your social security number plus your 3 digits or whatever that you're going to say. But, you know, I want to basically discharge this debt. Can you send me the papers on that? And at the bottom, it'll have the coupon right for the money order. Please send me that so I can discharge this debt. And you should be able to discharge any major debt: student loans, car payments. This guy is supposedly doing a debt he incurred from a supposed traffic ticket from some court, and this is this.
4 of them. I have so I don't know how I'm supposed to enforce these, or if it's the CID.
Here, let me go back a little bit.
Does Christopher Fleming have any other numbers that we can reach him at?
That's the only one right now.
Christopher Fleming come from an outside company.
Alright, so what I want to do is I want to play this at about... Jesus. I want to say 12:19. It may not let me do this anymore because I am using XSplit, and it may not allow me to do this.
So I need to learn. I need someone to tell me how to actually fashion these money orders so that they'll go through. Or do I need to send it directly to the IRS? Do I send it to the bill? Do I send it to the creditor? Like, do you know how this stuff works at all? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I think I'm aware of what you're talking about.
Okay, so here's what I got on my thing. I put money order for money, and then I put paid to Municipal Services Bureau, and then in the amount of, and then I leave it blank, right? And then I crossed out the amount due, and then I put my initials and authorized representative. And then I put by Christopher Fleming, the all capital, and then I put authorized representative, and then I signed it. Like, I actually put my signature on there. And I said, please adjust this account. And then on the back, when you flip it over, it says, for deposit to U.S. Treasury, for credit to Municipal Services Bureau, for account number, and then I put, like, because on here it gave me, like, a case number. So instead of, like, putting, like, if it was, like a bill for, like, a bank or something, like, instead of putting the account number, I just put the case number. Is that going to work, or?
So this is a money order that you're trying to fill out in the amount of how much?
Well, that's what I was calling about, because, like, I was told that it's my understanding that we should just leave the amount blank because the IRS CID division actually figures out, they like work out some kind of settlement, or like they discount the amount of the remittance. Because the original amount that they say that Christopher Fleming owes is $1,333. So I crossed it out. Should I leave that on? Should I put in the amount of 1,333? And then do I send it back to the court, or do I send this into the IRS and then the IRS will set off the account? Or how does the discharge actually work? Because it's kind of frustrating when I've sent out like 4 of these things already and they're just all being ignored.
Okay, and who gave you the discharge?
Who gave me the discharge?
Yes, how did you go about getting the discharge?
I haven't done it yet. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I have it right here in front of me. Like, they sent me a bill. They sent the legal person, Christopher Fleming, a bill. So I got the bill, and then I wrote all this out on top of it. Because it's my understanding that we can just pay for all this stuff with our signature, because there is no money. And I'm sure you know about all that, like HJR 192 and Public Law 7310, where you can't pay a debt with a debt, and basically the U.S. obligations are to set off or discharge any debt that comes to the straw man. So I have proof of a bill here for the all capital letter Christopher Fleming. So now I'm trying to set it off. But I'm just trying to figure out which is the proper way to do it. Do I send it to you guys? Do I send it to the court? Is everything, just from what I've told you, does all the information that I need on here? Because it's my understanding that to be able to create a negotiable instrument, all it has to have is a date for set off, an amount that's due, and an acceptance. So basically, like, if I tell them I'm accepting this presentment, right? Am I doing it all right?
It looks like there might be some errors there. Now, what court is it that you're trying to send it to?
It's for Municipal Services Bureau. See, that's what I don't understand. It's for a court that's in Southern California, but then they want me to send this remittance to some Municipal Services Bureau in Austin, Texas. So, but it's for Moreno Valley Court. It was just for like a speeding ticket or driving without a license. I don't remember what it was.
Okay, so you're trying to pay a traffic violation.
Well, I'm trying to set it off, not pay, because if I was going to pay, I'd have to send in the Federal Reserve notes or give them a credit card number or something, you know? So I'm
trying to set it off. That's the idea, folks. Just get it set off, and that's it.
With my Treasury Direct account number.
Treasury Direct account number.
Okay, what's in the Treasury Direct account number?
Well, it's my understanding that when I was born, I was born the man. So what happened was there was an obligation, because what happened is in 1933 they took and sold all the birth certificates to insure the national debt, because there was no money. We were in debt. So they said, what we're going to do is we're going to create these all capital letter straw mans. It's all in Roosevelt's inaugurational speech, where he goes through and basically says you can't pay a debt with a debt. So therefore, I have this bond that was created at my birth. It's my birth certificate. That's why my birth certificate was printed on bond paper, because it is a bond. So that bond was sold to insure the national debt. Well, when they did that, they said that the Supreme Court said that our remedy was through HJR 192 that we may set off and discharge any public debt that comes to the all capital letter straw man name. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I tried to do it on my own, where I sent the remittance back into the company, and they just ignored it flat out. HSBC I sent them this remittance, so I don't know if they took my remittance and they cashed in on it, and then they sold it again to a collection agency, or if I did it wrong, if I'm supposed to send it to the...
Right, so he's just getting information.
How I do that? Do I need to send in the coupon with it? Do I send that directly to the creditor? Do I send that to the IRS? How does this... Can you tell me more about this process, please?
Here's the part that's worthwhile.
See, now, unemployment is taxable. Does Christopher Fleming know that?
I have no problem. If you guys will send me a statement to close out the account for everything I owe you guys, for everything the legal person, Christopher Fleming, owes you guys, then I will set off the amount. I will extend you guys the credit that you're requesting. If you send me a remittance, or if you send me a statement, then I will send you guys the remittance, and I'll become the due holder in course. Since what I don't understand is I become the due holder in course on this, and they just ignore it. So do I have to how do I enforce these things is what I'm trying to figure out, because they're just ignoring it, and I feel like they're just keeping all my remittances, and it's totally unlawful. Like, they have to. The law says that they can't refuse payment, and they're just refusing payment every time. So, or they tell me they only accept cash or credit cards, and it's just like, no.
That's not the case at all. If you're a legal entity, you need to have an order so that you can go ahead and move forward to the next issue.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and send that out to you, and I'll even put time on the account for you to go ahead and get those into us. I'll give you till February the 29th.
And she's sending him all the documents needed.
And let me give you the address that needs to go to.
Okay.
Let me know.
All right. That's a little bit longer than I wanted to put out, but you guys get the idea that this is actually real, and that you, when you look into everything, can find out where you can get this bond information. You can discharge your debts, because you cannot pay a debt with a debt, and basically get all your high bills paid off and everything else. Like always, folks, and in these, you decide. Thank you very much.